Welcome to V is for Victory, a podcast about how small businesses overcome big battles. I'm your host, Jill Miller of Vera Creative, a boutique marketing firm in the Chicagoland area where I'm also a part-time professor of an advertising course. Join me as I talk with entrepreneurs about the challenges they faced as well as their strategies for success. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 24 of V is for Victory. My guest today is Sean Tyler Foley. He is an actor, author, and speaker. Tyler, welcome to the show. How are you?
Pretty good, Jill. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for taking the time to chat today.
I'm happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this one, actually.
Yeah, likewise. Your bio lists that you've been in movies, in TV series, in musicals. You're an author of a #1 best-selling book, The Power to Speak Naked. You're obviously no stranger to the stage. You're an expert in the field of empowered communication. But I want to go back to the very beginning of your journey. Tell me how you got to where you are today.
Well, it was very circuitous with a lot of road markers. But when I started, I got into film and television when I was 6 years old, and a lot of that had to do with my father passing away. When I was 6, he was in a motor vehicle accident, a single vehicle motor vehicle accident, and died on the scene. And I didn't actually outwardly grieve my father's passing for probably about 6 years. And I think out of concern or maybe just needing to find something to do for me, my mom and my uncle got me into theater. And so I've been performing on stage since I was 6, which has made it really easy for me to take the stage and not really experience stage fright. I didn't actually experience stage fright for the first time until I was about 14 years old. And so that kind of started my path. I went to a fine arts high school. I actually had a medical incident when I was 17 that left the left side of my body paralyzed for almost a year. And that was an interesting challenge and really reinvigorated and put a drive back in me, because at that point I'd been acting for 11 years and had become a little complacent with the craft and kind of thought I knew everything and was just going to be a superstar. And that actually humbled me and reminded me of why I was doing what I was doing and gave me a push and a drive again to get back into theater. And then I've just kind of progressed through life that way. You know, when you're an actor, you're always an actor and a something else. I was actually quite lucky. From 17 to 25, acting was my only job. It was what I did, and I didn't have to supplement my income any other way. But I ended up going back to school, getting an engineering discipline, and starting my own business. That business collapsed. I pivoted with the training that I had gotten, opening up the business into a safety consulting firm. That company is flourishing. And then we've pivoted once more because everybody keeps asking how it is that I do what I do. And what they're usually asking is, how is it that you get up on stage or in front of people in general, boardrooms and even on job sites, and just talk to people and be comfortable doing it, because the majority of people are not. And so I found that really good safety systems start with good communication. And so now I train people on how to talk, and the safety side of the business is actually being run self-sufficiently without my input. So that's how I got to where I am.
Just what was going through your head at that time? Like, what was the thought process? Do you know, like, what caused the stroke at 17? I'm sure it was kind of a dark time. How did you pull yourself out of that?
So with the stroke, we actually don't know fully if it was a mini stroke, if it was a palsy, a paralysis, what exactly happened. But what likely happened was it happened between New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So New Year's Day 1997, I woke up and the left side of my body didn't work. And I had slept very awkwardly the night before. And what they suspect is that I pinched both a nerve and the vein in my neck, and so I wasn't getting the impulse to move, and pressure built up in my brain. So that's where stroke-like symptoms would have developed. And so I woke up, and just the left side of my body didn't work. My face was floppy, and at first I didn't even realize it. My mom had come in and yelled at me. I'd had a girlfriend stay over, and her parents didn't know where she was, and they were asking for her to be returned. And so I was trying to get
17-year-old.
Exactly. So I was trying to get ready, and I remember brushing my teeth and the toothpaste not staying in my mouth and just dribbling out the side of my face, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I was limping. Mom was asking if I had, if I was drunk or if I was hungover, and I didn't drink at the time, so I was like, no, I wasn't. I've imbibed nothing. I'm quite sober. And so she was looking at me, and then it was at that point that she realized something was probably not right with me, and then everything kind of went from there. Got to the hospital and started getting scanned and probed, and I've got a beautiful picture of my brain to this day of what it looks like. It's quite round, actually. I'm very surprised at the symmetry of my brain.
Excellent
yes.
brain.
But
that's awesome.
But honestly, at first it was kind of a numbness, physically and metaphorically, where I literally couldn't feel the left side of my body. It was very hemispherical, so as soon as you crossed over the center line, all sensation was lost. I remember doing tests with physio and the chiropractic and the acupuncturist and stuff like that when they would be trying to gauge function, and they had this little pinwheel thing, and they would roll it over my forehead, and they'd start on the right temple, and it would hurt like a lot, and it was this kind of little miniature pizza cutter thing, and it would go over my head. And then as soon as it reached basically the bridge of my nose, I couldn't feel anything at that point. It ceased to exist. And I remember for the first 2 weeks feeling really lonely and isolated because we were still on Christmas break. And so I hadn't gone back to school, and I didn't see any of my friends. I was lucky because I had a really supportive group around me. When I did finally get back to school, I had good friends, and they were supportive. The worst that they did was they kept making me laugh, which was a blessing to be able to laugh, but then it was a curse because when I'd laugh, I'd look absolutely ridiculous because only half of my face would smile, and I would make this weird noise and sound. It was just, and they all thought it was hilarious, and it made me laugh more, which would make me, and it was an interesting time anyways.
And so what healed you? It sounds like you did a lot of holistic medication versus went the allopathic route.
Well, it's because there wasn't a lot that Western medicine could do. It was one of those things where they didn't know what had happened. And so they kind of looked at me and went, well, we don't know, and so we don't know how to treat it. And the things that we think it is, there is no treatment for anyways. So sorry, kid, you're on your own. And luckily for me, I had a really good medical team who did rally and were both Western and Eastern trained. So they were like, well, we can try a couple of these things, and these are some of the physio things that we can do. These are some of the potential medications we could try, but before we do that, let's try this and this. So I laser acupuncture, regular acupuncture, chiropractic, physiotherapy, some holistic medicines that would, help with getting electrons going again. I alkalized my body, which was interesting. So we did a whole bunch of different things to try and get everything working. And luckily, within a year, I was back to almost normal. And to this day, you wouldn't really know anything happened except for when I get really, really super tired. My face, the left side of I start talking out of my right side more than my left. The left gets a little lazy. But beyond that, I would say I made a good recovery. But a lot of it had to do with mindset and having a really good goal going forward, knowing that I needed to make everything work.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. And then take me back just a little bit further, if you don't mind. Actually, my husband has a similar story. He lost his father in a car accident as well, and all same thing, killed right on the scene. And he never knew his father. He was much younger than 6. But talk to me about that. And at 6 years old, you don't even have the tools really to process something like that. But I can just imagine, it really kind of altering the whole kind of family dynamic and just your world. So what can you look back on as an adult and tell 6-year-old Tyler about that time in your life? Like, what would you tell 6-year-old Tyler?
That it's okay to be exactly how you feel. I, as you had mentioned, at 6, I wasn't able to process the finality of my father's passing, and that wasn't really until the end of my 6th grade that I had my first understanding that my father wouldn't be there ever. I'd actually received an award for the top student of the school in elementary. And, when you're in an elementary gymnasium, they seat the kids, little kids, 1st grade, the front, and then everybody kind of sits to the back. And so 6th grade, I was the big kid. I was in the back of the gymnasium, and all the parents, it was the final assembly of the year and the awards assembly. And so all the parents were sitting along the edge of the wall of the gymnasium, and as a student, I had to walk up and around the perimeter to get to the front to receive the award. And my mom was sitting on what would have been the north wall of the gymnasium and on my right-hand side. So as I walked around and I passed my mom, and it was a very full event, but for some reason the chair beside her was empty. And I remember walking past the chair and thinking to myself, Dad should be sitting there. And it was in that moment that I kind of did a whole life jump, right? The life flashes before your eyes. I kind of future casted in that moment. I went, Dad isn't going to see me do this. He isn't going to see me graduate high school. He'll never see me graduate college. He'll never see me get married. He'll never see the birth of his grandchildren, like all of these things. Mm-hmm. And I was consciously aware of that in that moment. And just this flood of grief and remorse flooded over me. And I was just devastated in that moment. So I'm crying all the way up. Everybody thought I was crying because I was happy to get the award.
So happy.
In reality, and in reality, I was absolutely devastated over the first real realization that that Dad had passed and was not coming back. But when I look back on it, I needed that. If my father had been alive, there would have been no push to put me in theater. I wouldn't have had as many people rally around my mother and my family. And so, they say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, we really did actually have a town come together and help with me. So, my Uncle Brad, my Aunt Terry would take us after school, and they ran a foster care home, a foster home, and so they had tons of kids, and we were constantly exposed to just different children with different needs, and seeing that there were people worse off than me. I had a mother. A lot of these kids had nothing. It came from less, and so I could see where my blessings were. And then again, I got to be raised by not one father, but probably 15 that I could easily list off in a half a second, if not more, that provided guidance and mentorship to me and were role models as father figures for me. And that, you can't replicate that. You can't trade that. So as sad as I am with my father's passing, and I am, I wouldn't trade it for the world or change anything, because I wouldn't be who I am today if it were not for the circumstances that came from that event.
Yeah. I think your dad was there, and that's why the chair was empty.
You know, it's funny. I actually do think the same thing. I did a talk about it about 5 years ago, lessons learned from elementary gymnasium. And I do. Like, it was, especially the way, if I could take people back, I really wish I could, just to see. Like, it was packed. Like, people were standing. And yet this one chair was empty, and, Mom didn't have her purse or anything on it. Like, she would have gotten looks if that were the case.
Right.
Yeah, it just happened to be empty. And you're right. I do. I've felt for a very long time, and I've felt my father's presence in numerous situations. I remember 19 years old. I'm pretty sure I was 19. I'd have been 19 coming up 20 because it was just before or just after the millennium. And I was in a car accident myself, coming back from my sister's birthday, so it would have been early April. And I was driving from the West Coast into Calgary. And so it'd be an equivalent drive of somebody going from LA to Las Vegas. Only in Canada. So in April, there's still snow in the mountains occasionally. And when I had left, it was an absolutely beautiful day, beautiful evening, and my father had fallen asleep, and that's how he had his accident. So I'm hyper conscious of when I get tired in a vehicle. And I was doing a night drive. I had just finished wrapping up a production on set, doing a one of those educational videos called "What's the Deal with Treaties?" And I literally wrapped, and I was like, well, I could make it for my sister's birthday. So I hopped in the car and started driving. Got basically 3/4 of the way to my mom's house, but that's still an 8-hour, 9-hour drive.
Yeah.
And I was exhausted at that point, and I was like, no, I'm going to pull over. I'm going to have a nap, and then I will keep driving. Well, in the time from me pulling over to the 4 hours later when I woke up, there was a blizzard, and it had literally dumped over a foot of snow. And they had actually closed the road. So they'd put the barriers down on either side of the road, but I was in between the road closure, and I don't know if they did a check on the vehicle or whatever, but they didn't see me, and so I didn't know. And I woke up, and I'm a hardy Alberta boy. I've been driving in bad winter weather for forever. And by the time I woke up, not only had it snowed, but then it had cleared again. So I'd gone from a clear night sky back to a beautiful blue morning sky. And I was just like, well, I'll just drive in this foot of snow. And I didn't really put two and two together because, you're groggy and young. And so I started driving, and I ended up catching the wheel well, caught the edge of a snowdrift because they hadn't plowed or anything, and I was just going through. And it spun the car around, and I went off of a 20-foot cliff. And
oh my gosh.
I'll never forget it because the car spun. It did a 180-degree turn as it caught the edge of this drift, and it kind of pushed it, slingshotted like a pinball, the car over to the opposite side of the road. But it swung at 180 degrees, so I was actually facing the right direction for the travel of the road, but going the wrong way. It was going basically in reverse. And then it caught the edge, and it flipped the car over. And as the car started to rotate to go over onto its roof, I don't know what happened, but I got pulled out of the vehicle. I got basically jerked out of the driver's side window. And I remember being above the vehicle and seeing the bottom of my car and going,
oh my gosh,
that looks weird. Like, if anybody's ever seen the bottom of a vehicle, because you never see what they look like. They're just kind of dark with a lot of stuff. And I remember thinking, that looks weird, and being probably 5 to 6 feet above the vehicle as it started to roll down, and I could see it tumbling, and I was just kind of floating over it. And then I landed, poof, really soft and gently in a pine bush that had, a foot of snow over it. And it acted just like the world's greatest crash mat. I just kind of poofed into it. And the worst thing that happened out of that whole thing, I mean, the car was a complete write-off. The hood, or the roof of the car, actually had a V imprint where it landed on top of a boulder. And it drove the driver's side seat 4.5 inches through the floorboard. And the only thing that kind of stopped it was the mechanisms that run on the underneath of the car. And so if my head would have been there, I'd have been dead myself. But the worst thing, that I had a little scratch, and it was like maybe 1/4 of an inch from where I went out the glass, and the safety glass cut the side of my pants. But I had nothing on me, and I just kind of poofed in. And I remember having to get down this ravine and then back up to the roadway. And as I got to the top of the road, the park ranger was coming by, starting to try to get out and do an assessment of the road conditions. And I guess I couldn't have been more than 2 kilometers away from the ranger station, so like 1.5 miles from the ranger station. And so they just kind of picked me up and found me. So I didn't have to suffer from any of the cold. It was really just a very surreal thing. But no, I literally felt the hand of my father yank me out of the car. I'm convinced of it to this day. And there have been other incidences too where I just know he's around.
That is incredible. I mean, that's a book in itself right there.
Yeah.
So one more, I mean, you've had so much adversity, but let's just touch on one more depressing thing, and then we'll hopefully uplift this conversation. Sorry, everyone, about the crying baby. I'm headed up to make a bottle after I ask this question. You had a business dismantle, sounds like overnight. What was the cause of that? What were the lessons from that?
So I had an incredible mentor when I got out of school, and we had put together a really interesting business doing interior 3D mobile mapping. And we were a little ahead of our time too. So the business, if you Google it now, people can pick up the equipment that we were using or something similar and equivalent for pennies of what we had paid initially for ours. When we were doing it, it cost just over $2 million to put together this cart that would go inside of buildings and 3D laser scan it along with pictures and geo-position it so it knew, using GPS and a fancy thing called an inertial measurement unit, exactly where inside the building it was. So you could literally make this 3D scan of the building and drop it onto Google Map if you wanted to. And we thought everybody would use it. Realtors were going to use it, and building infrastructure people, and insurance companies, and historical societies could use it to document places of historical significance, pyramids, and everybody was going to use this equipment. And the problem was nobody knew it, nobody understood it, and we were definitely ahead of our time. Which is funny because now I actually see, I'm watching documentaries of people that are going in and doing this very thing that we were trying to pitch, but 10 years later, and it's just like, they're like, oh, and this new technology. I'm like, it's not new technology. I had that 10 years ago. But unfortunately, my business partner and I had a bit of a falling out where we didn't agree entirely on how to market the equipment, and we were kind of at odds. And then she literally just didn't feel good one Friday. Was having a hard time breathing. Went into the hospital and was deceased by Sunday. And everything was in her name. We didn't have the right director's insurance in place. And because I was nobody. I mean, I'd sunk 3 years into the business, and time, all my money, everything was wrapped up into it. And when she passed away, because everything was in her name, leases, equipment, everything, I couldn't take it over. I was nobody in the eyes of the business, and in the eyes of the law and everything else. And there was just no way that I could find the financing or the backing in the time frame that needed to be done in order to take it over myself. And so literally over a weekend, that business ceased to exist. And it was unfortunate, because I think it could have been an incredible thing whether I had continued on with it or not. I know with Jan at the helm, she was just a brilliant woman with an amazing gift, and incredibly smart. And she just, I'm sure we could have done some incredible things with that, but you never know. That's the one thing that I've learned in life, and everything that has happened to me. You just never know what tomorrow will bring. And literally, it's not even the whole day that's guaranteed to you. What's guaranteed to you is this next breath, and that's it. And so I've got to make the most of each and every one of them. And the nice thing is I got some great learning lessons out of that. I need to be more diversified in my dealings. I need to. One of the great lessons that I learned from her was that you need to surround yourself with good people. She was an incredible person. You need mentorship, but you also need tutelage. So one of the things that I have moved forward with all of my undertakings is I'm constantly seeking somebody who is 3 to 4, 5 levels ahead of me that can guide me and teach me, and is willing to do that too. That's the other thing. They need to be willing to invest the time the same way that I'm willing to invest the time. I need to have a peer group of people who are at or near my level, and who can support me and encourage me, where we can share our learning together and reinforce it. And then to make sure that I know what I know, I need to be able to teach people. And so I am constantly in this trinity of student, peer, and mentor or teacher. And that has been the greatest gift of my life, to be able to recognize the need for that, because that guarantees sustained growth.
So there's been so much sadness and kind of darkness, and you have been able to adapt and learn and grow, and really just turn a battle right around into some type of victory. But I feel like still you're being very humble. Tell me, what is it about Tyler that allows you to be so unbroken with everything that's happened, and so tenacious, and really come out on top? Like, what is it at your core? What is it about you, do you think?
Well, I mean, because I don't think people are broken. I think even the people who feel that they are broken or damaged are just in a state of healing. Like, I look at some of the mentorship and tutelage that I've gotten, and you talk about holistic medicine, and the body has this incredible ability to heal itself if you give it time and the right circumstances. It's like anything else in life. Life wants to restore itself. And so I am not broken. If I break my arm will mend. It needs to be set right, and then I need to give it the circumstances to do it, but my arm will mend. And that happens with all things. We will get better. Things get better. And the other thing is that things will break again, and it's recognizing that it's in a cycle. I think one of the greatest gifts that I got was from when I had my medical incident. One of my doctors, Dr. Bob Corbett, got me ticket to John DeMartini's breakthrough experience. And one of the most fascinating things that I learned from Dr. DeMartini, and then got reinforced when I started following and going to Tony Robbins seminars, and then working with the Power Success group so that I could be backstage when Tony was on stage, which was always cool, is that, we have an incredible ability to find both the positive and the negative in life. And from John DeMartini, I learned that there's always a yin and yang. And that's a physics principle, right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You can't have an event occur without having two consequences from it. One will be positive and one will be negative, and the two will likely cancel each other out. And so when events happen, they are exactly that. They're events. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It just was. And how we perceive it is entirely up to us. Now, there are lots of things that happen where I'm like, oh, right? I don't have this happy, positive mindset. But I also recognize when I'm doing it that it's my own perception. Right? Yeah. I was on set yesterday, and the role that I was doing was barely a step up from background. It might as well have been an extra. But I did get to say 2 lines and interact with the lead character of the show, which made it an actor role. And when I showed up to set, one of the first people that I checked in with, I'm like, "Hi, I'm cast," and they're like, "No, yeah, you're supposed to be down here," and they tried sending me to the background tent. And I was like, "I'm not background," and especially when you've been acting now, like I'm 35 years into the career, like I kind of know the way it goes. And this is one of the first roles that I've had in a long while that is a recognized show that is in my hometown, because most of the work that I do is actually out on the coast. Mm-hmm. And so I was kind of and this is a show that I've been trying to get on for 15 years. So it was one of those things where I really wanted it to be.
Can you tell us what it is? Do you have to be discreet?
Oh. I have to be discreet.
Okay.
But they,
I tried,
it was.
I tried.
You did try, and I appreciate that. And anybody can go. So the thing is they can figure it out in 6 months or so when it gets posted up on IMDb. They'll be able to pinpoint it and go, "Oh, that's it." But I was the AD sent me to the extra trailer, and then or actually it was a PA that did it. And then the AD was phoning me. The third AD was like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm down." And the parking was different, right? So for cast, the parking was closer to the circus, and for extras, it was far away, and you needed a shuttle. And they didn't have a shuttle because they weren't expecting a cast member to show up at Extras Holding. So I had to walk basically 2.5 miles down this country road to get to the circus. And it was just, it was one of those things where at that moment, I was like, grr, a roar. I hate this PA sending me to extras, blah, blah, blah. And there's no even extras here right now. Nobody is expecting, right? And I was grumpy. And then I had to take a moment. I'm like, I am walking down one of the most beautiful, picturesque country roads for a reason, because they picked it for the film shoot, because it's beautiful. And I'm like, it's a beautiful sunny day, and you, Tyler, are on set on a show you've been trying to get on for 15 years. Let's count some blessings here. But I was angry in the moment. Yeah. So it's everything happens. It's not necessarily that everything happens for a reason, but right, life happens for us, not to us. Every event that we have is needed for our growth.
I love that. Just the word for us. Like, this is for you, and what you do with it is entirely up to you.
Yes.
Right? Like, so good.
Yeah.
So, okay, taking you now to your book. How did you decide to write a book? You decide you're an expert in this field. What led to that? What was the process of writing a book like? What was the process of you revamped the book, right? And updated version is coming out. Okay, so tell me all the good stuff there.
Well, so again, what I've discovered is that the gift that I've been given is this ability to communicate. That I am able to take a stage, that I'm able to command a room, And I don't know how it is that I do what I do, but I just do it. And it's something that I've been doing for a very, very, very long time. And what I found was a lot of people would come up to me and say, oh, how do you do that? And they were always asking, essentially, how is it that you could be so confident just talking? Because most people are terrified of it, or think they're terrified of it anyways. And so I started telling people, I'm like, oh, it's easy. You just do this, 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 and this. And then people would say, oh, Tyler told me this, and I used it, and it was great. And now look, because everybody would ask, well, how did you do that then? Mm-hmm. And what ended up happening is I started to notice this pattern. And I would encourage any one of your listeners to take note of this, that when people ask you advice, what is the thing that they're asking you the most? Because that's probably where your area of genius and your gift lies. When people are asking you, how do you do this?
It's an underlying thing, right? Like it's not always the surface question. It's not always the question at face value. There's something deeper.
There's something deeper to it. And, you figuring out not only what is being asked of you consistently that points to that thing, but who is asking it of you. And so for me, what I found was that I would go and, everybody would say, oh, if you need an MC, you need to get Tyler. He's so good. He's so charismatic. And, it always feels good to hear that. And, it strokes my ego, and I don't mind it. But I love doing MC gigs, particularly for charities, because particularly for a long while, I didn't have a lot of money to donate to charities. But I also know how important charity is in life because, again, when my father passed away, my mom needed a lot of support. And charity doesn't have to be a designated charity, right? Charity can just be as simple as a kind word on a rough day. That can be some of the most uplifting things that you can need when somebody is really suffering, just being there for them. Mm-hmm. And so particularly charities that are centric to women, women in need. So there's actually a society here called WIN, Women in Need, and another one called Made by Mama, and some of these other ones, early infancy pregnancy loss. All of these charities I love to support because I know how much they're needed. And when I don't have the money to give, I certainly have the time and I have talent and expertise to give. So when they ask for an MC, I would go, absolutely. How can I help? What do you need? And I will bend my calendar to help them. The one that I really love to support, Made by Mama, has this annual golf tournament that they do. And because of COVID, they had to cancel it last year. And this year, they almost didn't get permission to go. And they literally found out yesterday that they could do it on Monday. Well, I have 4 media appearances scheduled for Monday. And they were like, can you MC? And I'm like, I will make it work. So I phoned all of the people. I had a live radio. I had a TV station that I was supposed to be in, 2 podcasts. And I phoned them. I'm like, look, this is important to me. How do we make this work? And the one was able to reschedule for me. 2 of them said that they would love to go live from the golf course just to see me doing what I'm doing. And the podcast said, well, it doesn't matter. It's audio only. So as long as you can slot off 30 minutes to find yourself. So I worked with the charity and the golf course and got me a little private office. So I'm going to do the one podcast from the office, nice and quiet, just on the phone. I'm going to do the 2 shows that are the video feeds. I'm going to take my video gear set up and we'll just set up on the golf course and they'll have a pretty view of the golf course, which will be interesting. So, and then the other one was able to reschedule for me. So, but I will always do that. And then what would happen is these charities would say, well, how do you do that? I wish I could do that. And I wish that they could do that because if they have the ability to speak on their own, like I'm good. I can be pretty and show up and be entertaining, but I don't know the story. I don't know the why behind the charity, even though I can know it. Like somebody can tell me it. It's not my story to tell. It's their story to tell. Mm-hmm. And when they tell the story, it changes the world.
Right.
And so I started to work with them. I'm like, well, here, if you do this, 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 and this, and if we had you tell your story, I couldn't go up and tell my story. No, but you can. It's very easy. And I'd start working with these charity directors, and then they would tell their other charity friends. They're like, they'd be like, well, how, we need to do fundraising, and everybody's always needing fundraising, and everybody's always needing to raise more. And they're like, how did you do so good? Oh, well, I worked with Tyler, and he showed me how to tell my story better, and then all of a sudden everybody opened up their wallet. And the next thing I know, I have all these charity people asking how to help them tell their story, to pitch better to donors, and pitch better to get better board of directors in who can help align with their vision, and even to reach out to the people who need their help, right? A lot of people are afraid to ask for help, and by them telling their story better, they're able to help more people because more people feel more comfortable coming and asking for the help. And that's where I started to find that I was saying the thing over and over and over again, to the point where a really brilliant friend of mine said, you should write a book. I was like, I don't want to write a book. I don't want to do that. It sounds like work. I don't like work. And and she was like, no, you don't even have to write it. She asked, she's like, how many of these training seminars have you recorded? I'm like, everyone, because I need to review them. I need to figure out what's working. She's like, great. So you have all of this video. Pull the audio from the video, transcribe the audio, put it into a book. And I went, that's a great idea. Why not? Let's do that. So it's exactly what we did. We took probably 50 hours of training videos and transcribed them and pulled it together. And I hired a really, really dynamic team of ghostwriters and editors who took the transcripts and my outline of what I wanted it and put it together and made it more succinct and digestible to the eye as opposed to the ear. And then that's how the book came about. And then the revised version is because everybody has more questions now, right? And again, pay attention to what your people are asking. So I put out the one product, and they went, oh, that's great. I wish I knew more about this. Or particularly in the last 12 months, everybody sees me on the Zoom calls, and they're like, you look so good. What are you doing? And I'm like, this, and this. So we've added a chapter on how to do digital presentations, which was not a thing that would have been included previously. And actually, that came from a training video.
We did a chapter on skincare or something like that. Like, what's your skincare regime? Is that on the cover of is that you on the cover of the book?
I would love it if that was me. Look at that guy's lats, hey? Oh. Yeah, no, that is not me. It's a close approximation, but that dude definitely works out a little bit more than I do.
Well, he has more time. We'll just say he doesn't have a family.
That's right. And funny story about that. So that's actually a stock image purchased from a company that Jeff Bezos owns. And that same company won't allow me to advertise my book on their platform because the cover doesn't meet their decency standards. It shows it shows somebody in an overt sexual position and emphasizes their breast and or buttocks. And so I'm not actually allowed to advertise that book on one of the largest book platforms in the world.
Wow. Okay. So there's a battle you have to overcome in terms of marketing. Really quick, like just a few more questions. I won't take up too much more of your time because I love this conversation, but what are some of the marketing strategies in place to get your book out there and read?
Well, so I do a ton of podcasts. I've been booked on or recorded 109 podcasts in the last 60 days. And I find them to be one of the best ways to get the word of mouth out because you have active, dedicated listeners and people who actively want to know more about the guests that are on the show. So I found that has been a great way of doing it. Having the website up and running my courses too So, every time I do a workshop or I do some kind of facilitation, I always have the books available. And then getting out on stage. I mean, I'm a public speaker. I speak on speaking. It's a really weird niche career to have, where you have so many speakers who are, they're motivation or they're inspirational speakers, or they speak on finance, or they speak on safety, or they speak on whatever they speak on. And I'm literally a dude who goes up and takes the stage to tell you how to be able to take the stage. I'm like, here, you can just literally do this thing that I'm doing right now. And so it's kind of it's always fun watching my daughter try to explain to her friends what her dad does for work.
Well,
but Daddy talks. Well, so does my dad. Yeah, but my dad talks to people about talking. So
that's adorable.
But so that basically word of mouth has been the best way to do it, and supporting it through the courses. Yeah.
No surprise there. Okay, rapid fire questions. What has been your favorite movie or TV role so far?
When I played the diner kid, the teenage diner kid in Door to Door with William H. Macy and Helen Mirren.
Nice. And what was it about that experience that you love so much?
Everything. I got to work with Dame Helen Mirren. I got to work with William H. Macy. I got to jam with William H. Macy in my trailer. That was the first and only time that I had a full trailer designated to me. Like I had when you're an actor, particularly with what I do, I'm what's considered a day player. So I show up for what it sounds like a day. I have maybe 1 or 2 lines. I might get a principal role where I go 3 or 4 days of filming, but they put you in the honey wagon, which is basically the bathrooms. So there's the bathrooms, and then 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 little tiny small 4x8, or I guess they're a little bit bigger than that. They got to be 8x6 rooms, but they're not big. They're just enough for kind of like a little bench that you can sit on and get changed. And that's usually typically where I spend most of my time on set if I'm acting that day. And this one, I got a full trailer. It was, it had a bump out. It was massive. It had couches. It had a shower. I could shower if I wanted to. It was awesome.
Oh.
And right. And it was just such a fun role to do. And then, Helen Mirren actually won the Golden Globe that year for the role as Best Supporting Actress. And when they ran the clip for, when they show the clip of the show, right, and kind of showcasing what she does, it's our scene. And it's the bit between me and her. And that just made it, to this day, it's a huge highlight of my career. It's not the biggest role that I've ever done. Certainly not the most lines. It isn't the longest I've been on set. But from an experience standpoint, that was the day that I felt like a movie star.
Super cool. Love that. What about highs and lows from just this week? What was one? Start with a low so we can end with a high.
This low this week. I have not slept. This has been a busy week. My schedule is packed. This is from a podcast standpoint. This is kind of the heaviest of my schedule. I'm also doing a safety audit, and typically my team takes it over, but this particular client wanted me, so I'm having to shuffle in interviews and grab paperwork and do documentation. So I was literally doing it on set. Yesterday I was double dipping because I was playing auditor and actor, and just the not sleeping, I think, from stress or just who knows what, the fact that it's coming up near the summer solstice, so particularly up in the northern hemisphere, the sun doesn't go down until midnight, and it's up at 4. So it's bright and it's hard to sleep. So, the low has been the lack of sleep and the increase in stress level trying to get everything in this week.
Oh boy. I know nothing about that. I only have a 9-day-old baby at home.
yeah, exactly.
So, what about the high from this week? What's been good so far this week?
Definitely getting to be on set again. That role came about really suddenly. It was a last-minute decision. Originally, it was supposed to be a background role, and then they decided to the writing team had decided to upgrade the role. So the casting call went out on Friday. I needed to have, and everything is self-taped these days, so we do the auditions right here in my house. And so the casting call went out Friday. Friday happened to be a really interesting day because my wife was working from home that day. So we hit pause on both of our work days at 3:00. I recorded the audition, had it submitted by 3:30 on the Friday. It was supposed to be submitted no later than Saturday at noon, but I was the first submission in, and I'm pretty sure that's the reason why I got the role, because I don't think this one was based on talent. I think this one was just based on necessity and need. And so I think I was the first one in the door, and so I was the first one to get it. And so I received the call on Sunday that I'd booked it. Monday I went for my COVID test. Tuesday I did my wardrobe, and Wednesday I filmed the role, and that made for the day. I mean, that was pretty cool, quick turnaround. Yeah. And like I said, it was I've been trying to get on the show for 15 years, so it wasn't necessarily the role that I wanted or had pictured initially. I would have loved to have had a little bit more significance to it, because I'm pretty sure this one is gonna, if it's not on the cutting room floor by the end of the week, it's going to be a blink. I'm pretty sure it'll be very similar to what I did in Freddy versus Jason, where if you know it's me, you know it's me, and other than that, you'll never know that it was me. But I got to do it.
Are you sure you were in that?
Exactly.
No one believes you.
And it was a great day too, because I was only there for half the day. I think my call time was 12:15, and I was wrapped by 4:30. So, nice. And when you're an actor like that, you get paid for 8 hours, regardless. You get a day rate. So good. I got paid the day rate for 4.5 hours, or not even 4. We didn't even make it to the 4-hour mark. So that's awesome.
That is awesome. Congrats on that. I love it. Last question for you. What does the world need to hear right now?
Well, you know what's funny? What the world needs to hear is that the thing that they're afraid to say is what the world needs to hear.
Yeah.
I think everybody has a story, and I think we get so guarded with the certain aspects of our life that we don't want to share. But when you expose yourself to the possibility that somebody else is feeling the same way that you are, and you say, this is my story, that's when you can start to have impact and change the world. So what I think the world needs to hear right now is that the thing that you're afraid to say is what the world needs to hear, and to go out and say it. And that was the whole point of writing the book.
That's awesome. That's so, I don't know, that's just perfectly said, yeah. And I feel like I can, attest to that in a way, because I've been speaking up a little bit more on just, my personal views on certain things, on the whole, COVID situation, and mostly on my personal platforms. And I get more people messaging me and paying attention to my posts and asking questions and interacting with me than I ever have before, even though I'm saying things that are maybe very controversial and a lot of people might not agree with. But it's kind of a different, I don't know, it's a different avenue for me to speak out. I've never used social media as any type of personal opinion or political outlet, but I recently have been, and it's kind of interesting, the response that I'm getting compared to something I might normally post that everyone would just ignore. So that's pretty cool. Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? When and how can they get the book?
So the first question, where can they find me? Best place is SeanTylerFoley.com. That's SeanTylerFoley.com. Sean is spelled the proper Irish way. And that's where they can go and they can get all connected with me. There's a free download there called The Method that they can click on, and that'll be 5 insider secrets from my 35 years of public speaking to help them be more confident and tell a more engaging presentation or story. It's a quick 11-page read, so it's not too hard and very easy to implement secrets. And they can connect with me on all my socials there and everything, so SeanTylerFoley.com if they want to. And they can, if they get very clever, go through the various funnel processes and find ways of getting the book both paid and free if they go through there. But anybody who would like to pre-order a copy of the newest version that is going to be in bookstores in September, I am encouraging everybody to go to bookshop.org. And that is actually an amazing website that connects you online with your local book retailer. And given the state of the world currently and where small businesses are at, Jeff Bezos has made enough money, and he doesn't like my book. So we don't need to be directing people there. Although you can get the book there. I just can't advertise on it.
Yeah.
But if they go to bookshop.org, it'll connect them with their local book retailer, and they can pre-order the copy there. And I would appreciate that, not necessarily because I want the sales of the book, but to help out the mom and pop shops who are very likely struggling right now. So if you don't want to get a copy of The Power to Speak Naked, you don't have to. You can get whatever book you want to. But the next time you are thinking to get a book, whether it's The Power to Speak Naked or anything else, bookshop.org, and type in the title that you're looking for, and that's going to help out the mom and pop shops. And it's good, and bookshop.org works around the world. So it's not just U.S. centric. It will find your local book retailer wherever you are. So
that's super cool. Thank you for sharing that. I love it. I love that. I'm definitely going on there, and I'll buy your book. I'll throw you a
I appreciate it.
I'll buy your book. Hey, listen, I appreciate you. I know you're super busy. Taking the time to just, sit and talk with me today. I had kind of a perma frown on my face at that first half of our conversation, and by the end I had a perma smile. So really just love hearing the true, raw, authentic version of how you really rose from some pretty sad things, some pretty hard things in life that I think if you don't go through, you take it for granted, how lucky you are sometimes. So it was great connecting with you and talking with you, and I just appreciate you sharing your gifts with the world, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck, but let's keep in touch because, like you said, we're friends now.
Sounds excellent, Jill, and thank you so much for having me on the show.